Okay, guys, so I can't believe I'm saying this about gameplay because in so many years I've been saying one thing, but I have to go back on it because of the situation that EA has created within this community, okay? Um, I have to say this. It's actually important that EA makes an old and a new gen version of FIFA, okay? It's very important. We're going to be doing a comparison between the two versions of the game and why I say it's important. Guys, if you guys watch the gameplay video that I made earlier in the year, right? I mentioned that the game isn't as bad as people say it is, okay? But it's because I'm focusing on certain mechanics in the game that have been improved in FIFA, because it's a comparison between what was all garbage to what is some things good. Let's get something very clear, okay? Like I mentioned in that gameplay analysis video, okay? Any FIFA game, or any video game for that matter, right, that leads into the direction of less responsiveness and park the bus gameplay, right, is by default a garbage game, okay? Now, obviously, when it comes to FIFA, people who play FIFA in general, there is the realist enthusiasts, okay? Guys, realism does not mean in a video game less responsive, okay? If there are certain animations or mechanics that pop off, you need to still feel like you are a god if you were good at the video game, okay? When you guys get really good at a video game, it means that your one-to-one thought to control, quickness, reaction time, all of that is just like you're free-flowing, okay? You're free-flowing. There's no restriction in your brain unless you are learning the game and trying to get better at it, okay? These guys who play Call of Duty, there's no thought process to what they have to do when they get really good at a game, because there's not going to be a mechanic that really messes them over, or if it does mess them over, it's because of like a part of the map where they can't like jump over, or maybe they try to jump shot, but then they mantle instead of jump shotting, right? In FIFA though, guys, for the new gen version of the game, and you see this very, very, very clearly, right? The responsiveness is not good, okay? Just like I mentioned in the gameplay video. So by default, it's not a good FIFA game, because you are lowering reaction times from people, and you're making them play slower than what they should, because it should just be like quickness in like from control to video game, okay? Because that's how it works for any video game. Let's make something very clear, okay? This direction that people want sometimes, right? Where they want the game to be fully realistic. Guys, if FIFA was a fully realistic game, the game would be horrible, okay? Man City the other day scored fantastic goals. Beautiful football, right? In certain cases. In FIFA, when it comes to certain mechanics, right? Some of those things can't happen in a FIFA game, right? Yes, the game is a simulator, but it's a video game. You need to understand that you need to have that fine line between video game and realism. Just because you can visually see as a viewer or as a person playing the game that a player is adding more emphasis on their touches, more dribbling mechanics, right? Does not mean that the game is realistic, okay? It doesn't mean that. If these animations and these things pop off, but your one-to-one control for the game isn't good, it's not a good game by default, okay? Now, the things that I did mention being good for the new gen version of the game, like I mentioned to you guys, right? The shooting, I like the shooting, right? Except for the L trigger shots. Some of them are incredibly overpowered. People are literally only going for them. When someone only goes for this one thing, that's how you know it's overpowered, okay? It's like I mentioned to you guys in previous years. The power strikes, you know, inside the 18-yard box, cross body, near post, finesse shots being back inside the 18-yard box, that's fantastic. There's always going to be that variable with time finishing being in the game where sometimes you miss the target because they want you to time finish as much as possible. That's just a thing in FIFA, okay? That's never going to escape us now that time finishing has been added to the game. Not now, for the last like couple of years of it being in the game, obviously, right? Those are some like great changes in the game like that. I noticed like there's certain attacking opportunities where when I make that 90-degree angle, shoot it across, it works out fantastically well, right? Because you have a variable of manual goalkeeping, right? Someone can easily save that opportunity if they use manual goalkeeping. Because even if you use manual goalkeeping a little bit, in FIFA, what it does is that it actually affects the shot of the actual attacker, where they can hit it that side, but if you're manual goalkeeping, sometimes it actually makes their shot worse because you did it, right? And then sometimes it could be better, especially if you green time it in that direction, you could still score it. But you got into that position to be able to score it, okay? But guys, people keep ignoring, right? Because when I'm talking about gameplay, or I'm talking about this mechanic or this mechanic, you ignore one thing, but then really project the other thing, right? Like I said, I like some mechanics in this game, okay? There are some mechanics, but the general feel of it, right, is that it's too sloppy, okay? Because the game for skill-based stuff should be based off of reactions, quickness, things popping off right away. Now, the reason why I'm making this video and why I'm taking back what I say about old gen versus new gen gameplay is because if EA doesn't, fully utilize the good in their new gen gameplay by making the game less park the bus, more responsive with the left stick, right? Because it's really weird, to be fair. But then obviously if you adjust left stick, you're going to have to adjust other mechanics in the game, like I mentioned in that gameplay analysis video. You can't just touch one thing and then the other thing is left untouched. Okay? It's very important that you balance everything when it comes to that thing. But right now, yes, it's very, very rough. If you guys get to the top divisions, it's for the most part not crazy fun to play. The meta is not the sauciest. But guys, listen, we all have to come to the conclusion that FIFA is not like a great game competitively anyways, okay? The last time that gameplay was competitive for FIFA, honestly, was back in the day, maybe like FIFA 14, FIFA 15 days, right? And even those games, they had overpowered mechanics, but if those overpowered mechanics were nerfed, right, it would have been a pretty good competitive scene to watch. But for these couple of years, or not couple of years, but these like 7-8 years, like not as much, especially with inconsistent gameplay being a thing. Inconsistent gameplay is another thing that adds to the garbage. So again, you have your base mechanics where left stick is weird, park the bus is a thing, and you have inconsistent gameplay. Those three things, by default, the game's horrible, okay? Let's make that clear. Again, there are good mechanics in the game, like I mentioned earlier. Why am I saying it's important to have two gens now? It's important because if they do not adjust the new gen stuff, the old gen stuff is more responsive. It's quicker. Things happen faster. Players attacking AI is better. The space on the pitch is more open, not as park the bus. I'm able to do certain skill moves, touches right away. As you can even see in a situation like this with Ronaldo, being able to just take a certain touch and then touch the ball right away. And that's with the player that I'm giving the hunter chemistry style to, okay? Now, another very big problem in FIFA, and this goes for both the old gen and the new gen version of the game, is that the manual challenges have been slightly improved. Yes, they have been slightly improved. You notice it with certain defensive animations, right? But they're still not good, okay? There are far too many instances where, even if you have top tier players, they keep doing push touches, right? When they should just receive full possession of the ball. That's one thing that when I played PES, when it was like I would say like 2 or 3 years ago when I like really tried out that game, it was genuinely one of those types of situations where if you actually tackled someone manually, you would actually get the ball, okay? And that makes a huge difference. This gameplay that you guys are seeing here is the old gen version of the original Xbox, okay? Because I don't have the new Xbox. My boy said that he had Ronaldo on his account, so I'm like, you know what? I'll use your account for Ronaldo, right? So whatever division he was, whatever this and that, I was like, I'm going to use him anyways. And when you play the old gen version of the game, guys, okay? And some of you guys may not agree with this because of realism ricks, okay? Let's be honest. This game as a video game is more responsive, right? Which is very important for reaction times. The small little dribbles that you can see me take here with Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, you cannot do in the new gen version of the game, okay? If you had these same outputs, right, but your manual defense was significantly improved and people were not parking the bus as much, you would actually have a pretty solid game. Why? Because some of the mechanics that I talk about being good in the new gen version of the game have transferred over into this version of the game. For instance, shooting. If you get into the right position at the right time with some of your attackers, you're able to score your opportunities, right? The other thing is the what was the I forget what the other mechanic was that I liked a lot. Shooting was definitely a big one, like inside the 18-yard box. Definitely like that a lot. Some of these mechanics that you see for the old gen version of the game, right? Like the ball roll against the goalkeeper or the quick left stick against the goalkeeper to get past him. You've created that position for yourself for you to score those opportunities. You would deserve to do anything you want against the goalkeeper as long as you're doing the right things when you're 1v1 against them, right? So the reason why I'm making this video and saying why it's so important for me to change my mind right now about old and new gen, which is so unfortunate that I have to say because it should not be like this, is because if EA does not adjust their new gen version of the game, I could see a lot of people switching to the old gen version because of how much more responsive it is. Guys, as a viewer and as a player of the game, I'm going to be honest with you, it's a little bit shocking that they're going to make pro players play the new gen. I already thought it was shocking last year because that meta was absolutely horrible. But this year, even more, with less responsive gameplay and even more park the bus, essentially, it's kind of crazy, okay? It's kind of crazy. And the fact that pro players are going to have to play that is going to be... Like I said, I haven't been interested in watching competitive FIFA ever since like the super old days, like FIFA 15 and stuff. Like when Huge Gorilla was absolutely incredible with his like 4-1-2 and stuff. Kurtz being a monster, even Taz being sick, you know. Like I just haven't been interested because when you play the game and you understand what makes a game skilled and what doesn't make a game skilled, when you're seeing the new gen version of the game, it's just off, you know. You can't restrict. The key word here is you can't restrictions. You cannot do that to players when you're trying to make a competitive based game, okay? That's why I disagree with Foot Champs being a game mode, because it is a quantity amount for a competitive based gameplay that is not competitive. Like if we had Foot Champs maybe for FIFA 50 and stuff, like sure, but even still, I don't agree with Foot Champs being a game mode. I've never liked it. You guys know how I am when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? I've never liked Foot Champs. If anything, I like Division Rivals more because as a competitive mode, as a video game, right, it just makes more sense because during the week, you're going to play your games to get your rewards, right? Your initial grind is to get to the Elite Division. Once you get to the Elite Division, your whole focus is to get those wins and then stop playing it. And then if EA were competent and made a good tournament mode game mode, that would be the other thing that you would play, right? But I wanted to show these highlights specifically from the Ronaldo video because you're able to see skill moves and then immediate dribbles in certain spaces, little layoff passes working out really well. To be honest with you, the old gen version of the game has been done really well for the most part. And I do feel like, for me personally, it is a better game. I do not agree with people liking the new gen version of the game because it's more realistic, okay? Because if that's your aim to get a more realistic game, then you are not going to get a proper video game, okay? So that's just my opinion, right? I think it's very important to say some of the stuff I'm saying is not new. It's just misinterpreted by a bunch of people, okay? Because I mentioned to you guys like 5 or 6 times in that video that the left stick and the park the bus stuff, I agree with people. Even at the end of the video, you'll hear me say that this is not the right direction because any game that you play that acts against you, that puts a restriction on you from what you want to do, it's just not a competitive game, right? If you play this game at the top tier level for the new gen version of the game, it can be boring because it should be really good back and forth FIFA like it was in the old days. If FIFA 15 had consistently good gameplay, because good and bad gameplay was a thing as well back then, that game would be really sick to watch from a competitive point of view as well as just anything else. If it was always good gameplay. Good gameplay on FIFA 15 was addicting, okay? I remember very vividly like having nights where I would stream, because that's when I used to be more of a streamer than like YouTuber, right? I remember vividly having nights where I would stream for a full 10 hours, never have good gameplay once, and then I would have the good gameplay in the 11th hour, and then I would stream for 5 more hours because that's how good it was. So this insane direction that EA is heading towards with less responsive left stick and more park the bus is crazy, because That left stick, like I mentioned in the gameplay analysis video, you have to be very careful with how you adjust that now, because if you make it too effective and you don't adjust your defenders with manual tackles and just movement in general, it's going to be a very rough spot, okay? So I just wanted to mention that because a lot of people misinterpret a lot of the information I said. Like I said, shooting was really nice. Definitely was a huge fan of the shooting. I like that when it comes to the pace of the game, right? There are certain passes, because it's not to say that all passes you can't get through, okay? You can. Not all of them. It's definitely going to get a nerf because of the lengthy body type thing, or the lengthy accelerate thing. I do feel like a nerf will probably come for that. But I do like that a person doesn't only specifically go for that. Guys, FIFA 22 meta was horrible, okay? It was park the bus, counterattack, only go for one pass. That is not a good way of playing this game, okay? In the old-gen version of the game, you can't do that because the pace is like kind of well balanced as well. Because like I said, some of the new gen mechanics transfers over to the old-gen version of the game. So it's like I said, I don't like, and I said this before the game comes out, okay? I do not like the separation between old-gen FIFA and new-gen. This by default is not the right direction. But with how EA does things, right? They have to keep it with two different generations because their new gen is not polished well enough, okay? If your old gen wasn't polished well enough while being a more responsive game, I highly doubt your new gen will be anything crazy, because I remember the first year that the new gen came out, when I switched to that game, I even explained it to people when I was using like a 4-2-3-1. I explained to them and I literally told them, like, this just feels like a nothing game. That's what it feels like. Okay, it feels like a nothing game. Like I'm playing this 4-2-3-1 and there's nothing like it's not like itching the football parts of my brain when it comes to like the attacking plays and all that kind of stuff. I will say though that for the old gen version of this game, it has been improved. Okay, so it could be a situation in the future where if the new gen version of the game still frustrates people way too much, they'll switch to the old gen, you know? We're not competitive players. We're not pro players, right? If that's not adjusted, people will switch because your new gen version of the game is just not polished enough. And going in the direction of less responsiveness, more park the bus, is not a good direction. And it also doesn't make the game more realistic. Maybe visually as a viewer, maybe it'll look more realistic to you, but for me to hold the controller in my hand and do the stuff I want to do quickly, you know what I mean? So yeah, I just wanted to make that video to clarify the longer video for the shorter one, okay? That's pretty much it. Guys, thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace out, dudes. Love you guys.